In this video, we will discuss about the impact of globalization on the administration of justice. The basic arguments and the discussion in this video is based on two important articles, one by Manoj Mate, who teaches in the University of Berkeley in the United States, and Professor Upendra Baxi. Professor Baxi classifies the analysis of the administration of justice primarily into three eras: judicial 70s, judicial 80s and judicial 90s. Judicial 70s is the high watermark of the Indian judicial activism, which started with the post-emergency Indian Supreme Court, wherein Menaka Gandhi and later on Ajay Hasia, D.S. Nakara and several of these cases have reinterpreted and emphasized on the interrelatedness between Article 14, 19, 21 and also expanded that any procedure should be fair, just and reasonable. It has built up enormous amount of jurisprudence which has expanded Article 21 right to life and liberty into several facets. So, let us begin with this premise of the judicial 70s and how the Indian Supreme Court attempted to explain and analyze the globalization process and the cases which started coming before the Supreme Court challenging the policies of the globalization in judicial 80s and judicial 90s. Judicial 80s is very important in the Indian context because that is the time the judicial 80s and 90s. Judicial 80s is stabilization of the judicial activism and expansion of the rights jurisprudence. Judicial 90s is where the new economic policies, globalization started coming up. So, how the Supreme Court has responded in these issues which have come before the court? Manoj Mate in his article, this was in the 2006, aptly summarizes three factors in the administration of justice, its impact on the globalization, the impact of globalization on the administration of justice. What are the three factors? The first issue or a facet of impact of globalization on the administration of justice is the court started lowering down the standards of the judicial review. The amount of recognition or acceptance of development as an inevitable policy, globalization as an inevitable policy, regulation has to come out, competitiveness has to be facilitated. That was a primarily the understanding analysis of the Supreme Court in the judicial 90s that continued perhaps even till today. So, that is a whole debate between development and the other forms of, so people, those who support globalization, those who are skeptical of globalization. So, we are attempting to analyze how the Supreme Court has responded to this in this post globalization era. So, the first aspect is there is a lowering down the standards of the judicial review, and Supreme Court started acknowledging that competitiveness and globalization is inevitable process and they will not intervene unless it is the policies have been passed in a bad faith, illegality, and something is which is an injustice is caused to the people. The second aspect which Manoj Mate explains about this whole process of globalization is where he says the constituents, the actors of the globalization like companies have been heavily prioritized and when compared to the people. So, we were discussing about Manoj Mate in his third facet of the globalization, its impact on the administration of justice, mentions about the Supreme Court redefining its roles as an adjudicator, particularly in the context of the new economic policies. Let us examine this primarily based on four important cases which really came before the Supreme Court, and all these are related to several of the new economic policies which were passed by the Government of India. Let us look at the first case which was related to the special bearer bond scheme R.K. Garg versus Union of India in 1983. 1980s is the first phase of globalization which was started in the Indian context. So, special bearer bond scheme is something where anyone can, those who have a black money can come and purchase these bearer bond scheme. So, this is another indirect way of legalizing the black money which some of the super rich people or someone else who is in possession of the black money. This is a mechanism and method of converting the black money into whatever quote unquote white form. So, when the Government of India has come out with this special bearer bond scheme and people started, I think, coming out and declaring this black money, it is declaring in the sense they will purchase this bearer bonds and no one will question about the source of this black money. So, R.K. Garg was really came before the Supreme Court and then he challenged this and he said this is completely, this is illegal and the source of the income should be declared, and the Government of India said we will not be able to challenge this policy. This policy is to see that the unearthed black money will come into the main stream or the main economic framework. So, that was an argument, and where we could see in this first case Supreme Court did not accept the challenge. In fact, it would have been the better to declare the source of the income. Second case which came before the Supreme Court is challenging the new telecom policy. In 1996, Delhi Science Forum versus Union of India, they challenged the new telecom policy and they said, and the Supreme Court has justified the new economic policies, and the Supreme Court said they will intervene into any of the new economic policies only when they are passed in a bad faith or illegal or irrational. Till that time, it is like a hands-off approach of the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court did not interfere into the necessity of the new telecom policies. And on the other hand, Supreme Court said all over the world telecommunication is privatized. So, therefore, the Supreme Court said it is justified and it will not interfere into the new economic policies. The third case is a very interesting case which came before the Supreme Court, that is related to the disinvestment policies. So, we could see in the second phase of a globalization, disinvestment has emerged as an important policy of the privatization, wherein the public sector units have been sold out by the Government of India. One such case is the Balco, which is popularly called as the Bharat Aluminium Company Limited. So, Bharat Aluminium Company Limited Union Employees Association came before the Supreme Court and challenged both the disinvestment policy of Balco and also the policy to sell Balco to the private players. And the Supreme Court said the Balco's Employees Association have no role. The laborers and employers have no role to intervene in this, and the Supreme Court said it is justified. It is the policy of the government, and the Supreme Court will not interfere. And the Supreme Court also said, if they disagree with this, they can go to the parliament. It is not the court which will take into consideration policies laid down by the Supreme Court. So, we could see this shift in the trend when compared to the pre-1980s, what we call as the glorious judicial 70s, and when come to the judicial 80s and 90s. And lastly, we will look at in 2006 an important case which is again a new policy where the privatization of airports started coming up, and the government has created a new policy of public private partnership for the privatization of airports. This case related to the public private partnership of the two important airports, Delhi and Bombay, and this case was filed by Reliance Airport Developers Association versus Union of India, where they challenged the public private partnership policy of the government of India in privatizing the airports. And the Supreme Court again adopted the same policy of hands-off approach. So, these four cases, along with Manoj Mehta's argument, which clearly points out that the judicial 90s, we could see that Indian Supreme Court attempted to weaken the judicial review. The amount of stance it has shown in the judicial 70s is not reflected. So, maybe the judicial 70s was a different political context, where there was a suppression of civil liberties and freedom and democratic rights, and the Indian Supreme Court realized that they have to do some repair, and that was a historical time where the Indian Supreme Court realized the importance of rights, freedoms of liberties which have been suppressed during the internal emergency between 1975 and 77. So, we could see the energy, we could see the interest and concern for freedom, liberties, and the concern for the poor and the citizens in the judicial 70s, but when it comes to the judicial 80s and 90s, surprisingly Indian Supreme Court should not show that similar stance, and on the other hand, instead of accepting the constitutional challenge and the Supreme Court reviewing the policies, they took a step backward, and almost in all these four cases clearly demonstrate that in the administration of justice, particularly with special reference to the new economic policies, Supreme Court primarily adopted a hands-off approach, non-interventionist approach, and indirectly stating that they will not interfere. The best forum to challenge this is Parliament and not the courts. That indirectly may be a, we do not say that a escapist tendency, but not taking a clear concern for the majority of the poor, those who will be affected, and those will be the suffering millions of the population. So, this video discussed about the implications of the globalization on the administration of justice. Thank you.